My childhood bully is now my roommate. My childhood bully kissed me in a drunken state that I will never forget. At 22, I had just graduated and was diving headfirst into my master's program in New York City. I knew the cost of living would be steep, but I didn't anticipate the astronomical prices I was facing. Seriously, for this amount, is the personal chef included in the price or what? Is this what adulthood feels like? I needed to find an apartment close to campus since I hadn't mustered the courage or the finances to get a car. Facing New York's notorious traffic felt like a daunting challenge I wasn't ready for. The hunt for an apartment was long, but far from boring. I'm what some might call a neat freak. I'm not completely neurotic. I can shake hands, but everything has to be in its rightful place, with a thorough cleanup at least every 3 days. After some back and forth, I finally connected with Kyle, one of my potential landlords. He managed multiple properties around the city, but none were in my budget.
"Listen, kid," he said, switching to a serious tone. "Today's your lucky day. I just had a spot open up in one of my more student-friendly apartments."
I eagerly checked the location he sent, just a 10-minute walk from campus. This could work. Great, I exclaimed, a smile creeping onto my face. When will the apartment be cleaned so I can move in?
His laughter boomed through the phone. "Well, you'll be cleaning it yourself. Oh, and you'll have a roommate."
Fantastic, I muttered, feeling the excitement drain from my voice. My search had left me with few options, and I was running out of time. My master's program started in less than a week, and my pickiness had caused me to miss every reasonable deadline. Okay, what the heck, I thought. Maybe this is the fresh start I need. It's my chance to prove I can be independent, chase my dreams, and perhaps even dip my toes back into the dating pool. The last guy I dated turned out to be quite the hopeless romantic, but I've learned my lesson from that misadventure. I packed my bags, including one suitcase dedicated solely to cleaning supplies. Gotta keep my new space spotless. As I headed into my new apartment, I couldn't help but wonder who my roommate would be. With a lease that tied me to this place for at least a year, getting along with him would be essential for my sanity in the city. As I neared my door, a thick cloud of cigarette smoke swept through the cracks, and loud rock music pounded from inside like a concert was underway. My heart sank, and I prepared for a disastrous first impression. As I opened the door, I saw my worst nightmare materialized in front of me. There, lounging like a rock star in his own personal den of chaos, was none other than my arch nemesis, Noah. He had his feet up on the coffee table, a cigarette dangling from his lips, and a bottle of whiskey in hand. Because who needs a glass when you can drink straight from the bottle, right? This can't be real, I murmured, struggling to contain my irritation. The sight was like a sock explosion had taken place, with socks scattered across the floor as if they were auditioning for a role in a horror movie. I even dared to peek into the bathroom, and to my disbelief, there were actual plates in the goddamn wash basin. Noah used to live just across the street from my flat. We used to play together as kids, but over time, he turned bitter and started calling me squirrel because of my skinny frame, big front teeth, and ginger hair. The other kids quickly picked up on the joke, and my insecurities skyrocketed. For years, I was so self-conscious about my appearance that I avoided getting close to anyone, especially dating. If hell had a poster child, it would definitely be Noah.
"Hey there, squirrel," Noah smirked at me, took a sip from his bottle and stood up, seemingly ready to pull me in for a hug. I instinctively dodged it.
"Noah, this place," I began, choosing my words carefully to avoid saying anything too stupid.
"Yeah, pretty neat, eh?" Noah replied, his grin haunting me. "Kyle told me I was getting another roommate, so I cleaned up a bit."
I couldn't tell if he was joking or completely serious. The apartment was far from clean. The dust was practically having a dance party, and I was suffocating in a cloud of cigarette smoke. I imagined tomorrow's news headline be, "Young man dies from a heart attack caused by none other than his sloppy roommate."
"Come on, let's celebrate." Noah pulled me into a hug I was desperately trying to avoid and offered me whiskey.
"Thanks, Noah, but no thanks. I need to get this place in order first." I wrenched myself free.
"Okay, suit yourself," he shrugged,
sinking back into the sofa. I spent my first 5 hours in New York vacuuming, scrubbing, and mopping to make the place somewhat livable. The music was still blaring, but I figured I could only tackle one problem at a time. Noah didn't even budge to ask if I needed help. When the clock struck midnight, he suddenly stood up and headed for the door.
"I'm going out. Don't lock up. I won't have time to look for a key."
The audacity of this guy. I hoped to explore the city, try some food, and soak in the sights, but now I was too exhausted for anything. I crawled straight into bed, feeling disappointed and hungry. I woke up the next morning feeling a little buzzed from the gallons of cleaning chemicals I'd used the day before. I was still furious at Noah for only considering his own needs, but I didn't want to drown in my anger and make my life miserable. I was just finishing breakfast when Noah groggily stumbled into the kitchen, his eyes barely open. "Squirrel, is that you?" he asked, reigniting my irritation. "Who else would it be? I'm your new roommate," I replied sarcastically while rinsing my dishes. "Oh right, I think I remember," he said, pausing to survey our shared space. "Did Kyle hire a cleaning lady?" I was taken aback. He had literally watched me clean for 5 hours straight. "I cleaned the place and even opened the windows," I said, hoping for at least a thank you. Noah walked over to the table where I was sitting. "So you're the cleaning lady and my roommate? That's amazing." Then, to my utter shock, he began changing his shirt and shorts right in front of me. "I need to head to rehearsal with my band. I won't be home until late." He casually tossed his clothes onto the floor in front of me, leaving my jaw hanging open. "Are you going to pick that up?" I asked, trying to maintain my composure. "Oh, don't worry. I'll just put them on when I get back," Noah said, casually gesturing to the clothes he just discarded. 3 weeks later, I was slowly turning into a literal maid. Noah treated the apartment like a dumping ground, leaving his stuff everywhere as if some magical fairy would come and clean it all up. Spoiler alert, I was that fairy. I'd remind him to tidy up, but he always had a weak excuse to dodge his chores. Eventually, I gave up on nagging him and just did everything myself. To my shock, Noah finally learned how to say thank you. Most people master that word in their toddler years, but I guess Noah needed a full 23 years. The last straw was when I found empty noodle bowls on the balcony. When I confronted him, he said he left them there to feed the pigeons. I was this close to feeding him to those birds. Noah was the lead singer and guitarist in some up-and-coming New York band, so he was out a lot, sometimes rehearsing, sometimes just vanishing into the night. Meanwhile, I juggled my studies and cleaned the place, mostly when Noah wasn't around to mess it up again. "I can't take this anymore, Janet," I groaned into my phone, venting to my sister via video call. She was my only lifeline to sanity. "Noah's an absolute menace. It's like he picked up where he left off from our childhood, just here to make my life a living nightmare all over again." Janet, ever the calm and collected one, gave me her usual steady reply. "Arlo, you're being too hard on yourself. The guy teased you when you were kids, 15 years ago? I doubt his life mission is to still torment you." I sighed. "But he can't even unload his clothes from the washing machine. He's got the emotional maturity of a toddler, and I'm enabling it." "Arlo," she said, more sternly this time, "you're not his slave, you're his roommate. Stand your ground and stop letting him walk all over you." She had a point. I couldn't ace my master's degree if I was busy picking up after Noah 24/7. Tomorrow, when he inevitably leaves something on the floor, I'll say something. No more Mr. Nice Roommate. The next day, I woke up to the sound of rain, and it felt like the perfect excuse to relax for once. Noah had been gone for 3 days, and honestly, I had no idea where he was. Dead or alive, I didn't care much at this point. I figured I deserved a chill day after all that cleaning. So I threw on my comfiest clothes, whipped up some hard-shell tacos, and settled in to play God of War Ragnarok on my PlayStation. Jethro Tull played softly in the background. Bliss. I was just getting into a pretty intense fight between Kratos and Thor when I heard a voice behind me. "No freaking way." I turned around, startled, and there stood Noah with a box of something in his hands. His presence was so sudden that I almost dropped my controller. "You, Arlo," he said, looking genuinely impressed, "are playing God of War Ragnarok and listening to Jethro Tull, my favorite band of all time." My eyes widened. I wasn't expecting this. The Noah I knew would probably tease me for being a nerd, but here he was actually complimenting my taste in music and games. Before I could process it, Budapest by Jethro Tull started playing, and Noah, without missing a beat, grabbed his guitar from the corner of the room. He started strumming along with the melody, his fingers dancing across the strings as if it were second nature. Then he started singing, his voice surprisingly rich and captivating. "Yes, and the licks went on forever, like staring up at infinity, through a wisp of cotton panty, along a skin of satin sea." I sat there, stunned. "Wow," I whispered, more to myself than him. Noah had an incredible voice. This was a side of him I hadn't expected, a hidden talent buried beneath all the chaos. As the song faded, I found myself saying, "I didn't know you were so talented. Your voice, it's amazing. Noah looked down, almost shy for a moment, and then muttered, Thanks. I'm not great at talking about stuff, but I appreciate it. There was a pause, and then he surprised me even more. Listen, Arlo, I know I've been kind of a jerk. Not just now, but for a long time. My parents, they're going through a nasty divorce, and I guess I don't handle stuff like that well. Doesn't excuse my behavior, but I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. It'll get better. I'll try to be better. I blinked. Noah? Apologizing? The guy who used to make my life hell and who I thought was born just to annoy me was actually opening up? For the first time since I moved in, I saw him as a person, not just the bully I remembered. Thanks, I said, still processing it all. I appreciate that, and sorry about your parents. That sounds rough. He shrugged, but there was a heaviness in his expression that showed it meant more than he let on. Yeah, well, life, right? I looked down at the table, eyeing the mysterious box. What's that? I asked, pointing at it. Oh, those? Some glazed donuts I picked up. Supposedly the best in town, Noah replied, his eyes flicking between the donuts and my PlayStation. Maybe I should say something. I'll share my game if you share your donuts, I teased, flashing him a grin. Noah didn't miss a beat. That's exactly what I was going to suggest, he said, lunging onto the sofa with a satisfied grin and lighting up a cigarette as if this was a negotiation he just won. Where have you been, by the way, I asked, settling into the spot beside him. Had a band gig, then crashed at a friend's place. Are we playing Ragnarok or Detectives, Sherlock? He smirked, giving me a puppy-eyed look that was almost too cute to resist. He was clearly dying to get the controller. Okay, game it is, I surrendered, handing him the controller. A female friend, I suppose? Noah raised an eyebrow and shot back. No, a male friend, Mr. Holmes. And relax, I'm not a womanizer, won't steal any of your girls. Besides, I swing both ways. Wait, what? Noah, my childhood tormentor turned rock star, was bi? I didn't see that one coming. Swindled, bamboozled, call it what you want, but I was floored. Noah, of all people, was part of my community? I didn't think Noah the bad boy rock star dated guys. We settled into the game, and time seemed to evaporate. We spent hours on the sofa, barely moving except to swap the controller. We got through the fight where Freya attacks Kratos, still grieving Baldur's death. Then Kratos and Atreus travel through Svartalfheim until Atreus sneaks off to explore his destiny alone. It was intense, and the energy between us grew more relaxed, almost comfortable. At some point, we ordered takeout. Between bites of pizza and game battles, we traded off the controller. I preferred playing as Atreus, quick, strategic, and the underdog. Noah, naturally, was all about Kratos, the powerhouse leader with godlike skills. We were so into it that our knees ended up touching as we sat side by side. It felt oddly nice, comfortable. Noah's phone buzzed, pulling us out of our little bubble. He glanced at the screen and answered, Hey, yeah, I'm kinda busy. Can I hit you up tomorrow? I shot him a curious look, wondering about his busy schedule. He just winked at me. How about a glass of whiskey with this game? He offered, his voice smooth. I grinned. Sure, I'll take a glass. You definitely need one, though, because I'm carrying most of this game. Noah let out a deep laugh, pouring us both a glass. Haha, well, that's a bummer, he joked. The hours slipped by, whiskey flowing as the game continued. I don't even remember when I started nodding off, but the last thing I saw before I drifted off was Noah still playing while Atreus met Angraboda in Jotunheim. I must have passed out completely. The next morning, I woke up, bleary-eyed, and realized I was lying in Noah's lap. He covered me with the nearest blanket, and his hand rested on my shoulder, almost as if he were hugging me. He still had the controller in his hand, and the game was paused on the screen. I squinted at my phone, only to see that it was already 3 p.m. Wait, what? How did I end up like this? And how did I sleep through half the day? Panic started to set in as I remembered I had classes, and I'd missed an entire day of studying. Scrambling, I reached for my phone to call a classmate and get the day's notes. But then I paused, glancing at Noah. He looked peaceful for once. I hated to admit it, but I had a really good time last night. It was weird how easy it had been just to hang out with him, despite everything. And, okay, fine, I kind of enjoyed falling asleep on his lap, but no, I couldn't go there. I mean, it's Noah. We're not that close, right? After a quick call with my classmate, I took a look around the room. Well, we had eaten takeout, so I guess it was time for the magic fairy to go to work. If only I could find my wand. No, let me do it, I heard Noah say as he sprang up, blocking my path like a noble knight. I'll clean it all, okay? You just rest. Wait, did I drink so much whiskey that I ended up in a parallel universe where Noah was my personal housekeeper? This was almost too good to be true. Just need to brush my teeth and I'll sort this place out, no worries. I promised you yesterday that I fixed my manners. Depression got the best of me. Okay, I was still alive, hallelujah. I thanked Noah and retreated to my room to catch up on my lectures. 5 days later. The state of the apartment had definitely improved. Not up to my standards, of course, but Noah had clearly made an effort to split the house chores. His hair was now styled, and instead of looking like a junkie, he resembled a hot junkie, if that was even a thing. We spent hours playing God of War, teasing each other whenever one of us met an untimely demise in the game. It was all fun and games until Noah whipped up a dinner of vegetable risotto that was out of this world. Wow, Noah, if you played God of War as well as you cook, you'd be... I paused mid-sentence, noticing Noah's sudden downcast gaze. What's wrong? I just got off the phone with my parents. It's official. My mother is moving to Europe to live with her new boyfriend. I'm really sorry to hear that, man. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here. Just don't spiral out of control again, I offered. He nodded quietly, and my heart ached for him. His parents had been at each other's throats for as long as I could remember. I couldn't even imagine what he must be feeling. Of course not. I'm not that stupid, he replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Well, I'm off to the bar. Feel free to join me. I have a lot to study, but please be careful. I hadn't even finished my sentence before he was out of the door. Clearly, this topic hit hard for him. I felt a strange sense of protectiveness toward Noah. I guess the Atreus in me couldn't let any soldier fall behind on my quest. The next day I had classes until the evening. As I walked home, I could hear music thumping through the neighborhood, a rhythmic bass that shook my very core. As I got closer, I realized the source was coming from my apartment. What the? I opened the door and was greeted by a raucous house party filled with at least 20 people. I barely recognized anyone, but I could definitely hear Noah's voice rising above the chaos. Hey! I shouted, trying to make myself heard over the crowd. Noah, shut it down! I have a test tomorrow. He barely glanced my way, brushing me off like I was a pesky fly. Frustration bubbled inside me, but I quickly felt anxiety creep in as I surveyed the filth that had overtaken my once cozy space. Giving up, I retreated to my room, hoping to sleep it off. After 3 hours of tossing and turning, I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed out of my room and marched my butt to the noise, dragging Noah into my room. He was mumbling something incoherent, speaking gibberish like he was channeling a drunken philosopher. I grabbed him by the shoulders. Noah, man, you need to pull yourself together. You promised me that the living situation would change. He smiled back at me, his eyes barely focused. I didn't know squirrels could be mad. Okay, you are that drunk, I sighed, feeling a mix of disappointment and exasperation. Listen, buddy, I have a test tomorrow, so can you please shoo away these people? It's 3 a.m. He smiled at me gently, and I couldn't tell if that was his general look or if he was genuinely devastated. Why are you a buzzkill? Okay, you have a test tomorrow. I'll scatter away all the people, but you need to do something for me in return. Before I could question what that something was, he pinned me against the wall, both hands on either side of my head, effectively trapping me. He analyzed me from head to toe, and I suddenly realized what he wanted. He was leaning in, and I wasn't stupid. I could read the signs. Physically, he definitely held a top spot on my people I want to smash list, but emotionally, I had no idea if I was ready for that leap. Even in his drunken state, he didn't want to pressure me, which was kind of hot. Our eyes locked, and then out of nowhere, he started kissing my chest. I let out a soft moan, and that seemed to flip some sort of switch in him. Suddenly, he was kissing me like a man possessed. With a surprising burst of strength, he threw me onto my bed and started tugging at my clothes. My heart raced, caught in a whirlwind of desire and hesitation. Deep down, I wanted this, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that he was too drunk to fully grasp what he was doing. Wait, Noah! I pulled away from him, breaking our kiss in half, trying not to make this more awkward than it already was. We can talk about it tomorrow, okay? I said gently, even though we were both still catching our breath. Noah blinked, looking almost confused now. Wow, I'm such an idiot. I thought you actually liked me. I do. I don't know. Let's talk tomorrow. Without another word, he turned and stormed out of the room like a bomb had just gone off, scattering the last few guests in the living room as he went. At last, peace. But my mind was racing in overdrive. Noah kissed me, the same Noah who teased me for half of my life, made fun of my hair, my clothes, the whole package. Now he was attracted to me? The confusing thrill of it all swirled around in my head. I liked it, but this felt like it had come out of nowhere, leaving me tangled in knots. But the real question lingered. How would he react tomorrow? We definitely needed to talk. The morning arrived too soon. I tiptoed into the kitchen to grab a quick coffee before heading out for my test, but I froze at the sight before me. The apartment looked like a bomb site, somehow even worse than when I first arrived. Noah was sprawled out on the sofa, cigarette in hand, eyes fixed on the TV, surrounded by takeout boxes and last night's cups. "Noah, we need to do something about this mess," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, I'll clean up eventually," he replied, barely glancing my way. With the test looming, I didn't have time to dance around the topic. I plopped down on the sofa next to him, ready to clear the air. "Listen, about what happened last night." "Nothing happened last night, okay?" He cut me off, a hard edge in his voice. "I was just joking around and kissing everyone. Thought I'd add you to the list too. Happy?" The words stung and I felt a surge of anger break through. "So that's it, huh? I was a fool to trust you, I've been your maid, your peacekeeper, and now I'm apparently some joke you toss in for fun?" I could feel the frustration rising with each word. "You might not realize it yet, but I'm your roommate, not your maid, not your mom, and definitely not your therapist. I put up with you being a slob, and now you act like last night was nothing? Noah, I'm actually trying to be a friend here, but that's apparently not something you can appreciate." He just stared at me, his face a mixture of shock and something I couldn't quite read. I took a deep breath, feeling the last few words practically shake out of me. I'd love to stay and hash out every miserable detail of this, but I've got a test to get to. I didn't wait for his response and headed for the door, slamming it shut behind me. As I walked away, a wave of satisfaction washed over me, like I'd finally punched back at my childhood bully. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about the mess or even the kiss. I'd had enough, and I wasn't sure what the future held for us as roommates. With adrenaline still rushing in me, I phoned Kyle.
"Hey Arlo, everything okay?" he mumbled.
I hesitated, then blurted out, "Actually, I don't think I can keep living with Noah. It's been, well, let's just say it's been an experience, and I think I need my own space. I'm really sorry, but I need to find a new apartment." There was a pause, and I could almost hear Kyle rubbing his temples.
"Arlo, you know the lease isn't exactly flexible, right? There are still months left. If you move out now, there's gonna be some, complications."
"Yeah, I figured," I sighed. "I just don't think I can take it anymore. I know it's a mess, but anything you could do would really help." Kyle sighed on the other end.
"All right, I'll see what I can do. No promises, but I'll try to find a way out of this for you. In the meantime, hang in there. I'll call you when I have any news, okay?"
"Thanks, Kyle. Really," I exhaled, feeling a mix of guilt and relief.
"Don't thank me yet," he chuckled. "Just, brace yourself. I'll be in touch."
After finishing my test, I grabbed some lunch and made my way home, trying not to dwell too much on the morning's drama. When I opened the door, though, I froze in my tracks. The apartment was spotless, not a sock, not a wrapper, not even a stray piece of dust in sight. My eyes scanned the room, searching for something to latch onto and keep my frustration alive, but there was nothing, not a single sign of chaos. I shook my head, still processing when I noticed a cigarette box lying on the coffee table. Curiosity got the best of me. What was so thrilling about these anyway? I picked up one of the cigarettes, slipped onto the balcony, and lit it. Almost immediately, I was hit with a harsh, bitter taste that made me cough uncontrollably. How on earth did Noah enjoy these? When I was questioning the entire smoking experience, warm hands slid around my waist, pulling me close. I froze, feeling Noah's breath against my ear as he whispered, "I'm sorry, Arlo. I didn't kiss anyone else. Only you." My heart raced. So he did remember. Or was he saying this just to patch things up? But he held me there, and I could feel something genuine in the way his arms tightened around me. "Thank you," I murmured, barely audible, "for cleaning up." He held me even closer, resting his chin on my shoulder. "I don't know what's wrong with me, Arlo. I don't know what I want, and every time I try to figure it out, I feel like a coward." I leaned back against him, feeling a strange comfort in the vulnerability he was showing. We stood there in silence for a while, his arms still wrapped around me, each of us letting the moment speak louder than words. And, in that quiet, I realized that maybe I didn't need answers either. Not yet. 2 weeks later. 2 weeks had passed since Noah and I had that unexpected quiet moment on the balcony. Right after that, he packed his bags for a band tour, barely sparing me a goodbye as he left. He'd been cold again, shoving any trace of warmth between us right back into the shadows. The apartment had been mine and mine alone for those 2 weeks. At first, I loved the solitude, the uninterrupted quiet, but as the days slipped by, I found myself missing things I never thought I'd miss. The faint smell of his cigarette smoke that lingered around the balcony, the way he folded his socks in the strangest ways, always leaving a mismatched pair behind on the sofa. There were times I caught myself wondering if I could forgive everything he'd put me through. Could I forget the teasing, the endless mess, the frustrating back and forth? And if I could, what then? Would we be able to be more than just friends? The thought surprised me, but it was there, lingering. I was still lost in thought when my phone buzzed, bringing me back. I looked down at the screen. Janet. "Hey sis," I answered, happy to hear her voice. "Arlo, guess what?" she said, excitement bubbling in her voice. "I got approved for a student exchange program in New York City. I'll be moving out there for a semester." "Oh, Janet, that's amazing." I felt a wave of happiness picturing her here with me. "When are you moving? And where will you be staying?" "They've got housing set up for me already, so I'll have my own little studio in Manhattan," she said. "And I thought it might be the perfect chance for us to live together again. I mean, if you want to, you could stay with me, at least until you figure out your situation. What do you think?" "That sounds great, actually," I said, the idea of a fresh start in a place free of memories and complications settling over me like a breath of fresh air. "I just need to wait and see if I can get out of this lease first." "Well, whatever happens, I'm here for you," she said. "It would be like old times again. Just think about it, okay?" "I will. Thanks, Janet. I'll keep you posted." After I hung up, I stared out the window thinking, will I regret the decision if I go? 2 weeks later. You'd think after 2 weeks of solitude and complete focus on my studies, I'd be able to push thoughts of Noah aside, but despite my best efforts to distance myself, both physically and mentally, he still found ways to linger in my mind. We exchanged a few casual messages here and there, but I kept my replies short, careful not to open up too much. I couldn't afford to get drawn back in, only to end up hurt again. Just as I was settling into my study groove, Kyle called.
"Hey Arlo," he said. "I've been thinking about your situation and I'm willing to look the other way on the lease if you still want to move out. No penalties, and down the line, if you're feeling more settled, we can talk about some of my new units. No pressure, of course."
"Oh, Kyle, thank you. That's a huge relief," I replied, feeling a strange mix of freedom and doubt. "I'll keep that in mind. I really appreciate it." It was almost a month since Noah had left, and I was finally starting to feel steady again. But then, out of nowhere, I heard the sound of keys clinking on the other side of the front door, followed by a frustrated sigh and some muttering. I froze, my heartbeat quickening. Noah. Before I could think it through, I got up and opened the door, and there he was, in all his road-worn, tired but still irresistible glory. "Hey," he said, looking at me with a tentative smile, eyes full of something that looked dangerously close to warmth. "I, missed you." My throat went dry, but I managed to keep my composure. "Oh, yeah?" "Yeah," he glanced down, shuffling his feet. "And while I was on tour, I wrote you something. A song, actually." His eyes flicked back up to meet mine. "Do you want to hear it?" "Sure," I said, smiling despite the tension crackling between us. Noah immediately swung his guitar around, almost as if he was afraid he'd lose the nerve if he didn't start right away. He took a breath, closed his eyes, and began strumming a soft, tender melody. Then, in his low, unguarded voice, he sang. He sang about growing up bruised, building walls to protect himself, then watching them keep out everyone he'd ever wanted to let in. One line hit me especially hard. "If you'll take me as I am, I'll love you the best I can." I felt the lyrics seep into me, dissolving every ounce of tension I'd held. As he finished, he looked up, and without even letting me say a word, he went on. "Look, I know I've been a mess. I know I've hurt people, even when I didn't mean to, and a lot of that's on me, but with you make me want to do better. I just didn't know how to tell you. And yeah, I'm afraid. I never wanted to hurt you, but I keep thinking about you, Arlo." His gaze fell, fingers fidgeting with the guitar strings. "If you'd give me a chance, I'd want to try this, with you." The room went silent, my mind racing. A part of me wanted to jump in head first, but I was also cautious. "Noah, I won't lie. I'm drawn to you more than I'd like to admit, but the thing is, I've been thinking about moving out." His face fell and his shoulders tightened as he snapped. "Of course, I open up to you for once and you're just ready to walk out." "Noah, listen to me," I said, reaching out to him. "I'm not trying to run away. Maybe I do need space, but I'm not abandoning you. We need balance, time to see what this is, without one of us always having to clean up the other's messes. If we're going to try this, I need you to meet me halfway." He looked away, his fingers tense on the guitar strings. After a long silence, he finally nodded. "Okay, I get it. Then he looked up at me, eyes softer. I'll work on it, just don't walk away completely. I smiled, stepping closer. I'm not going anywhere, Noah. I just need us to take it one step at a time. With that, he pulled me into a quiet, warm hug, and I let myself sink into it, knowing this was the start of something that, for better or worse, would change everything. Conclusion. Over the next 6 months, Noah and I took things slow, each focusing on becoming our best selves. I moved in with my sister, giving us both some space to grow, and in the meantime, I poured myself into my studies, determined to wrap up my master's degree. I learned ways to loosen up and enjoy the moment rather than always needing things in perfect order. Living with my sister was freeing, and I found balance, realizing there was more to life than neatness and routine. Noah was changing too, and every update made me feel like we were both headed somewhere special. He reached out to his parents, bit by bit, patching up their strained relationship. He quit smoking entirely, cutting down on drinking too, and gradually became more responsible and present. He joked that he was on his way to becoming a neat guy, and I laughed, knowing how far he'd come. Our love grew through every call and visit, and soon the idea of moving back in together felt exciting rather than overwhelming. By the time I had my degree in hand, I was ready for the next chapter with Noah by my side. I was starting to search for jobs while he was often out performing, his rock band's popularity gaining momentum with every gig. Now we're settled, happy, and looking forward to all that lies ahead. In him, I'd found both a partner and a friend, and we're learning that together. We can face whatever comes our way. The end. Would you give someone a second chance? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become part of our Rainbow Force. And stay wholesome.